Thank you. All right, as you see, the title of this presentation is Clicks, Views, and Democracy. Who is using the Parliamentary website? Now, basically what I'm going to talk about is I'm going to talk about things and stuff that everybody who is listening to this presentation probably knows. It's just I'm organizing it into all into one spot, one convenient place. And I'm looking at this. I should really 1 second. I should probably make this larger, and I can't make it larger because there's something else in the way here. I'm not managing to move that. 1 second. I'm gonna make this larger. Let me see if that worked better. Okay. All right. So what I'm talking about is basically measuring and analyzing website statistics.
Robin, yeah. Apologies for interrupting. If I may, can I share my screen with the mind map, because it's cutting some part of this. I can share that in my screen.
Sure. I'm gonna close mine then.
Please let me do this here. Just 1 second.
Yeah, I figure I can talk and you can just, you can do the techie stuff over there. Okay.
Let me. Are you seeing? No.
It's a little bit cut also, so you can like make it a little bit smaller. Okay, I see everything. Okay. Okay, good.
There he goes. Okay.
Okay. And it's funny because wow, those words are really little, but okay. All right. So again, back to what I said. I'm going to be discussing the measuring and analyzing of website statistics of parliamentary websites, and again, this is stuff that everybody knows. I'm not going to be saying anything new. I might, some of the things that I say might bring an aha reaction, but again, nothing new, nothing earth-shattering, and but I hope you enjoy what I have to say. Another little disclaimer is that any examples that I bring from, let's say, the Knesset website, which is where I work, I'll introduce myself in a second, are going to be real examples, but with fake numbers, okay? So I'm not going to have real numbers, but I will have approximate, meaning relative or proportionate numbers when it's relevant. So again, my name is Robin Treistman. I'm the Deputy Director of the Knesset website, the Knesset, the Israeli Parliament. I've been in this position for a really long time, since I've been working with the website since it started back in January 1997. So I've had a long view of what it's, from its beginning all the way to where it is today. That's where I'm coming from. Anyhow, but then the question is, and here's where I'm already going to start. Who's visiting our website? And on the other hand, all right, who's visiting it? But do I care? Why do I have to care? Or I'm going to start with the other question first, which is why we shouldn't care. And the first reason that we don't really have to care about who's visiting the website is because simply a parliamentary website is a must-have. And if you see the second term on the top right of the mind map that you see, this mind map, by the way, holds all of this presentation is all really condensed into that mind map. So the must-have, and the we were going to have it anyway. Think about any kind of parliamentary TV. If let's say we knew that parliamentary television was the live television of the plenum or of the chamber, and we know for a fact that there are 2 citizens out there, and we're spending millions a year so that 2 citizens can watch, okay? You're going to have it anyway. And no one's really caring about the ratings, because in a democracy where you want transparency, you're going to have that parliamentary TV station, a TV channel. And so again, the website, very similar. However much money is spent on it, they're going to keep spending the money on it because it is a must-have. You have to have that information out there. And again, even if, like my statistics, I go and I analyze my statistics, all right, and it says that I have 10 people visiting a web page that I spent 100,000 shekel to make, if it's very important parliamentary information, that is what we're going to keep spending that money to have that information out there, no matter how many people are looking at it. Now, another thing, we're not out to make money. I don't know about other parliaments, but I can tell you that the Knesset, we're not out to make any money. And we're not going to make any money by making any sale on our website. So in that sense, also, all right, if we're visited by 10 people or visited by 100,000 people, all right, I'm not going to make any money on it anyway. In fact, as we all know, we're spending on it. The next issue is why should we care? Because it's a niche population anyway. Who's going to get there? I'm randomly searching the net and I happen to do a search, and what pops up is something that is on the Knesset website, but I'm not so interested in that. I'm going to go look at, the news website or a popular, some kind of other popular site that, I'm not looking for the Knesset. But what is that niche population? The niche population are the ones who need to get to the Knesset website: journalists, students, lawyers, policymakers. They need the website. They're going to get to the website anyway. No matter. And the truth is, whether or not I invest in my website or don't invest in that website, that niche population is still going to get there. So then why bother? Why do I have to bother? And why do I have to bother counting the people who are getting there? Because those will get there anyway, and the ones who don't want it are anyway not going to get there. So that is another reason why we don't really have to care about the numbers. And the last reason is I can always go and say quality over quantity. If I come back and I say, wow, we only have 10 people visiting this page, but you know what, it doesn't matter, because that page has all of the information that people need. And again, that's back to the first issue, which is really the must-have. So I'm shooting for quality. I want to make sure that my information is good information. And the quantity, all right, the number of people that visit is not so important. The numbers just don't really have to matter. So I have just given you all of the reasons why we shouldn't care about good statistics for our parliamentary website. Now, there's always that story about the person who asks all the questions and then, but doesn't wait around for the answers. So I hope that everybody who heard those questions are going to now hear all of the good reasons why we actually really do have to care, why we should care. Again, there are enough claims that if we don't care, all right, you can get away with it, but we really should care. And why should we care? And the first one is, the favorite term when we talk about parliamentary information is transparency. And the second favorite term is public trust. And everybody wants both of those, all right? And of course they're connected, because with more transparency, we are going to assume that there will be more public trust. Not necessarily, but again, we can assume that there is some kind of correlation between the two. Now, so what's the connection between the numbers, how many people visit my site, and the transparency? Well, I'm going to throw in that third term I put down there, which is optimization. If we want to know that the information gets out to the public, okay, the easier it is for the public to find the information that they need. And again, whether it's information they like or they don't like, but they need that information, okay, the more trustworthy the parliament is. Again, providing transparency, then we become more trustworthy. And in order to become more trustworthy, we have to optimize. And optimizing simply means, again, you can use the definition of optimizing is basically making sure that the resources that you are putting into something are being used in the best way possible. And in this way, we want to optimize the web pages, knowing that getting the best way to get the information out there. And in order to really know if we're doing a good job, we might need those numbers that are going to show up in the statistics that I'm speaking about. I used the word resources already, that's also there. And again, resources, optimization, we want to use the resources in the best way to improve the public trust and the transparency. And I'm going to use the word continual improvement. The idea is not to go around saying, okay, good, I know that we have, we're reaching X amount of people. Well, you know what, tomorrow I want to reach X plus 2. it doesn't matter if I'm jumping X plus 1,000 or X plus 2,000 or X plus 5. Continued improvement. That means that, today we're doing something and tomorrow it's a little bit better. If it's that much better, that's even, that's an even greater achievement. But the point is that we care about the numbers because the numbers are going to give us that feedback if we are reaching the populations that we should be reaching, and if we are getting better at reaching them over time. Okay, we certainly shouldn't be getting worse. So that is why all of those 5 put together, and again, they're kind of like a little bit mushy around, they are a little bit blurred around the edges, because they kind of all merge into the same idea. That's why we really do need to care. Okay, so now I care that I need to know the numbers. I need to see who's visiting my website, how they're visiting the website, who and how many. So now what? That's the next little branch on the mind map. And so first, let's talk about checking the statistics. Check. Now, if I let the words Google Analytics slip from my lips, okay, that's simply because that's what we are using. But there are many, many tools out there to analyze a website statistics. Google Analytics is not the only one. It just happens to be the one that we're using. And, depending on the needs, it is not necessary. It's not necessarily the best. For some people's other uses, it might be the best. So again, any website staff is welcome to evaluate the different tools and to decide which one would be useful for their own particular needs and website. So first of all, checking the statistics. What does that mean? You also have to kind of make a decision. What statistics you want to look at. Now, there are many things that you can look at. You can look at page views, okay? You can look at interactions with the site. You can check every little tiny click that happens on the site. You can check, the pages where, you have high exit rates on pages, which, and you can check the number of unique users. You can check the number of users per day, users per month. There are many, again, the list goes on and on. I have a list here. You can also, of course, check the referral sources, or the search terms, where people are getting to your site, what search terms they are using to get to your site. These are all pieces of information that are very, very useful. And however, the next item I have listed here is to check for trends. Now, you can look every day. Sometimes people who want to lose weight, they're going to get on the scale every day and check, and there's some who are going to check once a week, and there are some that might check once every 2 weeks. So in terms of checking what's going on with the Parliamentary website, for the most part, you want to check for trends. Of course, I'm going to refer to a time when you want to check every day, but for the most part, you want to check for trends. What happened in the last month? What happened over the last half a year? What happened over the last year? Are there events in the country that affect how many people might be visiting your site? So again, checking for trends, and I'm going to skip over for a second, expect surprises, and jump to do not stress or panic. That's connected to that. In other words, looking at what happened today really might not mean anything compared to what is going on over the course of the month. So if you're looking for numbers and high numbers, and all of a sudden today, for some reason, barely anybody visited the website, okay, it is what it is. That's why I said trends are more important than immediate numbers or individual numbers as a general rule. And I will talk a little bit later about the exception. I'm going to jump back to what I said over there. Expect surprises. Now, I'm going to give you an example of a weird surprise that we keep getting surprised about over and over, and I don't know why we keep getting surprised, because the same thing keeps happening. On the Knesset website, okay, we have the usual things that are very popular for people to visit, which would be protocols, agendas, research papers, the pages of the Knesset members themselves, many, many different things that are visited on a regular basis, all the broadcasts. So many things have many, many, many views. But in a disproportionate way, the page of the proclamation of the independence of the State of Israel. The page, it's a page that is practically buried in the site. And for some reason, it has a disproportionate number of visits consistently across the board. We're like still trying to figure out why. Like does the whole school system tell all of the kids in the schools go and visit this page? We don't know. We haven't figured it out. The honest truth is we haven't spent too much energy trying to figure that out. It just is. And that's one of the very interesting surprises. Another interesting surprise is the opposite. We have a page on the site. It's also kind of buried, but you'd think that more people would want to find it, where there's a very neat Excel page with all of the expenses of every Knesset member on their expenditure with the public, including receipts, amounts, what they spent it on, very juicy information, but not really visited. And again, I'm going to be honest, we're not really publicizing that page so much, but you know what? All you need is one person to say that it's there and to make like a big to-do about it, but go no. So, on the other hand, the people in the accounting department are kind of happy that it isn't overly visited, just because it saves them some hassles, questions and stuff like that. But surprise. Okay, we thought everybody thought that it would be much more popular than it is. So again, surprises. We can learn from these surprises. Maybe if it was important to the website, of course you need to learn. You need to learn from them. And the last thing I have on the now what is to set some goals. So once you start checking the numbers, and you might want to at that point set some goals and say, you know what, the numbers are this. We want them to be that by next year. And what will it take to do that? And again, the goals should be realistic. They shouldn't be coming out of a place of stress or panic. It should be coming out of a place where how are we going to get the information better out there to the public? And so that leads me actually to the next branch on the lower branch on the left-hand side, practical steps. Okay, so you set your goals. What do we need to do? The first thing you need to do that we found, again, in our personal experience, but this also makes a lot of sense, is very simply, if you are, a staff of a website, and you're the one who cares about these numbers or about the visitation of the site or making sure that your information is getting to the public, the first thing you need to do is please go find somebody who will listen to you, because in order to make changes or in order to make improvements, somebody in the parliament, again, in the administration of the parliament, in the accounting department, in the budgetary people, the computer department, somebody will have to approve the decision to make changes in order to improve the numbers. So first of all, find somebody who will listen. So find somebody who cares. Luckily in the Knesset, there are people very, very high up in the administration that care very much about numbers and is willing to really do what it might take to improve the numbers as needed. So like I said, that's really rule number one, because after that, one of the very interesting, this is a very recent occurrence in our website, is we saw in the immediate interim how a paid campaign boosted the numbers of a particular page. Now, we very, very, very rarely do paid campaigns on the website, or paid campaigns which will direct traffic to the website. And in the last 2 months, there are some employment positions in the Knesset that are available, and nobody was answering ads, and the information wasn't getting out there. And so the Knesset ran a paid campaign over social media and over Google products, a directed campaign. And this is where I mentioned earlier, this is where we checked our numbers every single day, because we wanted to see how that paid campaign was driving people to the website. And yes, oh boy, did it make a difference. It made a huge difference. People were getting to the page, people were getting the information, people were looking to to send in their CVs for these employment positions, made a really huge difference. So if there is a situation where there's something on the parliamentary website that needs to get out to the public, and I really feel that I can say 99% at least that most of the people who got to those pages, who got to that page on the website, would not have gotten there without that campaign. Very simple. And so again, if there are any other pages that are important to get out to the public, if we want to, like I said, improve the transparency by going and saying to the public in all of the different social media and other forums that, hey, we have this information for you, why don't you go check it out because it might be useful for you. Great. That's the way to do it. So that's a practical step you can take. If the budget is there, I say go for it. Why not? It'll drive the traffic to where you need it to go. Optimizing low scoring pages, high exit rates, pages where people get to that page and say, all right, I'm done, or not interested, or let's say low scoring in the first place, pages that you think, again, now here I'll go back to what I said earlier about the members of Knesset, their expenditures with the public, where everyone thought that would be a more visited page. In this particular case, like I said, okay, it's not so visited, and the people who will listen don't really care about that page, okay? But that is a good example that if we put out a page and we expect there to be an interest and there is no interest, then that's where we have to start start putting our time, energy, and money. When we say optimize, figure out what resources we need to make that page more useful. Again, we can start trying first with a paid campaign and seeing if it's just a matter of getting the information out there. And once people are getting to that page, they're actually staying on that page and taking in the information. So that's another thing that can be done, another practical step. And the last thing is let's also, going back to my example, understand the popular pages and try to figure out what is bringing in the public for the popular pages. Now, for the most part, again, I mentioned that the most useful pages on our, the most popular pages on our site, things having to do with parliamentary business, and having to do with the research department, and having to do with the Knesset members themselves. Maybe that seems obvious, but still, there is nothing obvious. That's what I'm trying to explain. Back to the expect the surprises, right? So in any case, understand popular pages and try to apply what brings the people in on this page to that page. And again, I'm being very amorphous here because I can't tell you offhand what is popular about one page and will automatically bring to the other. But that's something that would be up to the Knesset our website staff or any parliamentary website staff to analyze and to try to figure out to improve numbers coming in. Okay, now let's apply this now to a larger picture. First of all, we want to keep the parliament relevant. Now, what does that mean? Our parliamentary website, again, is a good, transparent window, or we can use the word mirror, of what is going on in the parliament. All of the information that is generated by the parliament is getting out to the public on the website. Now, whether it gets to the people who need it at the end of the day or not, I can't answer that 100%, but it is, that's the idea. And however, and this is already where it's not up to a website staff at this point. It is up really to the parliamentarians to make decisions about this. But if you have a parliamentary tool, such as questions, okay, questions of the MPs to government ministers, and by the law, okay, the question has to be answered within 21 days. That means they have 20 days, okay, to sit on this question and then bring the answer. So why would that MP bother doing it? Of course, they would bother doing it because of public record. But you know what? If it's some issue that's so important, then they can raise the question already on their on their own social media and demand answers, and and make a big fuss about it, in the news and the press. So then suddenly this parliamentary tool of questions to the government minister might become less relevant because it takes too long. The public wants an answer now, today. So again, that is not something that I can control, okay? But keeping the parliament relevant, when I come with numbers and I say, you know what, people are not caring so much about the parliamentary questions. Look how many people are getting to that page on the site. Then, then these numbers can actually make or have some kind of a possible influence on a larger picture. Again, I'm using that only as one example. And honestly, again, going back to that, find someone who will listen. I'm not sure if any of the MPs by us are going to listen to that particular suggestion based on some numbers that I'm finding. But again, this is a general presentation about how these numbers can affect what information is out there and how it gets out there by the parliament. And I'm not just talking about technologically the website, I'm talking about even how a parliament might function. Next, budgetary decisions. Budgetary decisions, again, if I'm coming with numbers and I'm saying, you know what, our numbers are so low that I can tell you that our information is not getting out there. That's not true by us, by the way. Thank God, the numbers are decent, but they're so low they're not getting out there, or they're so low on, nobody cares about the information. It seems about the committees. Maybe we need to do something. So that can affect budgetary decisions. That let's pour some more money into the website, into the design, into user experience, to make sure that the information gets out there. Or big budgetary decisions like, here is a nice budget for paid campaigns to get our information out there to the public, or to at least let the public know that they can get the information on our website. And lastly, the constant upward movement. All right, and I can connect it back to what I said earlier with continual improvement about why we do care. A constant upward movement. Like I said, you want to see motion in the upward direction. We want to know that, again, today, 100,000 people visited this page. I want tomorrow, and when I say today and tomorrow, again, not literally, let's say today, 100,000 people. In 3 months from today, I want it to be 120,000 people. Okay, I want to know that the information is getting out there. I want to know that it's moving up and not moving down. And so, having said all of that, I really hope that anybody who is involved with their parliamentary website will be able to analyze these statistics and use the statistics for, again, their transparency, for getting out there, for improving public trust, for making sure that the public gets what they need from your website. And also, again, and if you do all of that right, then you know that the money and budget that is being spent on your website is really going to good use, to optimal use. Thank you very much. Thank you, Louis, for giving the opportunity to give this presentation. And I'm open to questions.
I have a number of questions. First one is, do you know who your primary audience is? Is it private citizens, special interests, corporations, inside or outside of Israel? Do you break it down?
Yes, the answer is that we do break it down. There is actually a large, I would say there is a large presence of users outside of Israel. Of course, the heavier group of users is inside of Israel. We can break it down by regions, inside of Israel, and we do know that it's similar to populations. Larger cities have more presence in the statistics, and smaller places have less. We know, as far as we did not analyze occupations. Okay, we do know from that's more from anecdotal. We do know about journalists, lawyers, students, for a very large part, and everybody else would be private citizens. The age breakdown interestingly enough, will start from 20, for the most part. Again, I'm going, the larger group will be between, will be basically 25 years old and up. Okay. Not too many teenagers, unless they're given an assignment at school, are necessarily going to, come and browse and hang out at the Knesset website. But that's pretty much where I can say that. Male and female, by the way, more females, a little bit. In other words, if, in theory, it should be 50-50, it's a little, it goes up to like 53. But, and that's also, again, that's kind of a funny statistic. Does Google Analytics really know? Okay, let's say. Okay, did that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Next question is, what sort of information do you provide? Do you provide access to pending legislation, enacted law, agendas? Do you have a breakdown of what you provide? Everything.
How's that for an answer? Anything that happens in the Knesset basically shows up on the website. Okay. And again, if you're talking about a committee, a meeting of, let's say, a committee, all right, it starts already from the agenda. It starts, then then there's background material. Okay, those are two things that are prior to the meeting. Then there is a live stream video, which then becomes VOD afterwards. And then there's a press release afterwards. There are conclusions afterwards. So that's, let's say, again, that's all, all of the products that come from one committee meeting, that is all accessible on the site. By the way, all of that is accessible on the site in Hebrew. All right, the website is in 4 languages, but when I talk about, the majority of the, let's use the word, regular, up-to-date, current information will be in Hebrew. So that I just wanted to clarify that. Everything connected to the plenum, okay, the agenda of the plenum, what's happening currently this very moment in the plenum, the video, there, of course, like the live stream video, and then afterwards the VOD, all of the laws, once they are passed, the laws as they are bills. When you click on a law in our in the legal database, or in the National Law Database, is what we call it, you also get all of the documents that are associated with it, and all of the committee meetings that happened that are associated with it, and the plenum sittings on which it was voted on. So yeah, if that answer, like, basically, everything that goes on in the Knesset, we put out somehow or another on the website.
Do you have a responsibility to actually maintain the enacted law after it's left the Knesset? Do you publish the full body of law in Israel as part of your website, or is it just the act of Knesset?
The law as it is passed in the Knesset, and all of the amendments of the laws, okay, are published on our website. The next step of the laws, which I'm trying to remember the English word for it. I'm sorry, I'm kind of half-lingual in 2 languages.
The compilation or consolidation.
No. The next, basically not the amendments. The okay, sorry, the word escapes me. Like, basically how to execute the law. In other words, if the law says, the law says safe traffic, okay, but how to execute the law says, okay, red lights and stop signs and stuff like that. In other words, like, the word stop sign doesn't necessarily show up in the law. It shows up in the, okay, I'm not really English word. Okay, sorry about that. Oh my God, I can't remember. Okay, anyhow, sorry, the Hebrew word is, coming out easily, but okay. So we don't have that information. That information will be found on the different ministries that have to execute the laws. Okay, in other words, the next step, what we call secondary legislation, as a general rule,
regulation.
Yeah, thank you. That's the word I was looking for. The regulations, okay? The secondary, yeah, that's the word I was looking for. Basically, the regulations that are the descendants, so to speak, of the laws, that's not on our website, okay? It's going to be on our website. That's actually the next step of the national legislation database. Hopefully within the next year, that's going to be on our website as well. But for now, it's not.
Okay, that actually was leading into my next question, which was, where do you see this going? What capabilities are you looking to add? So subsidiary legislation you just mentioned, is there anything else?
What information is there to add to the site? Right now, interestingly enough, right now, because basically all of the parliamentary information is now on the site, now we are working on, like, for example, the committee portals that we have on our site are now completely being revamped. So it's pretty much taking the information we already have and taking it to the next level, making it more user-friendly, more searchable, more accessible. Right now, for example, because the original committee portals were built back in 2012, they were not mobile friendly. We made them partially mobile friendly, and now it's up to us to make sure that the same way that anyone can access from a desktop can also access from mobile. So the information is there. Now we have to just make it a little bit more friendly. But that's an example of an older site. Anything new that's been going up on the site is all as well mobile friendly, accessible really from any device. So again, the answer is I don't have off the top of my head anything new that we are looking to add right now.
Any capabilities, collaborative capabilities, or capabilities where you actually solicit feedback or input from the public? Are you adding anything along those lines, or do you have anything along those lines?
So first of all, every parliamentary member, every Knesset member has access to the public, and they, obviously they have their way of gathering information from the public. Interestingly enough, this is, again, I'm talking a little bit historically. Back in the early 2000s, we had a Knesset member who was really a visionary and was really before his time. That we set up what we called an online committee, in which we broadcast live the committee meeting. This was so before its time. It's really hard to imagine that we broadcast the committee, and then there was a place for people who were watching the committee in their home to put kind of like a talkback on the spot. Okay, and that talkback, anyone that, let's say, wrote, it was broadcast up on a screen inside the committee meeting, and so the Knesset members that were in the committee meeting can look and see, wow, look at that immediate feedback. And again, so that was like an attempt way back when, and it actually didn't fly. And why didn't it fly? Because you had the same 3, 4, 5 people that would attend all the committee meetings and kind of like make nuisances of themselves. And so it was because, again, it was before its time. Not everybody had access to be able to watch and at the same time type in a reaction. So it was way before its time. Now, so then the question is, well, is there something like that right now? And the answer is, well, starting with the COVID, we had back then starting to have hybrid meetings where people can, from their homes, or people who were invited. Again, the word invited can also mean they invited themselves to a committee meeting and were officially part of the committee meeting, can give their inputs as well. We do not currently have more than that. As of right this minute, there is no plan to have that as well. But again, if anybody wanted to get their message over to the Knesset and say, hey, I have something really important for the administration of the Knesset to pay attention to, it will get to them via the website, via social media. It will get to where it needs to go.
All right, thank you. Those are my questions.
Okay. Thank you.
Please? Thank you.
I hope that what I said earlier was clear. And
very much so, yes.